All right, Alexander, let's talk about the attack on BRICS, which is what we are seeing from the Trump tariffs and the Trump White House. This is shaping up to be an assault on BRICS. At least that's my opinion of things. Trump is saying that he's placing all of these tariffs on India and Brazil. We're now at 50% tariffs for India, 50% tariffs for Brazil, though there's a lot of exceptions and cutouts to those tariffs, which you'll get into. But still, it is a way to divide BRICS and to sow chaos inside of BRICS. You say to India that you're going to place tariffs on India because of Russia. You tell China to stop trading with Russia and stop buying or to stop sending dual-use goods to Russia because they're fueling the war machine. You want to sow division and discord within BRICS, and I think that's what we see going on. And now we have BRICS uniting. Actually, instead of breaking BRICS apart, we see a type of BRICS consolidation and unification. And Lula seems to be leading the way with this, which is kind of the last person I would have thought to have called for a BRICS meeting and to call on BRICS to unite and to face the United States together. India is also now making moves, not only with Russia but with China as well, and this is having the reverse effect than what perhaps the Trump White House was expecting.
You're absolutely correct. And I think this is the general explanation for all of the various diplomatic moves that we're seeing. Now, what has happened over the last year, I think since the summit in Kazan, the BRICS summit in Kazan, is that the penny has finally dropped in the United States. The BRICS is a long-term threat to American economic hegemony. A lot of people after the Kazan summit meeting said, nothing substantive was agreed. There was no setting up of a reserve currency, BRICS reserve currency, or anything of that sort. But of course, a lot of other things were agreed, important things. We discussed this at the time: payment systems, trade systems, banks, and they're all gradually coming together. And Trump has clearly been briefed on this, and he's taking it extremely seriously. And we see an attempt to divide BRICS and to destroy BRICS and to conquer BRICS. And so we have tariffs, 50% tariffs against Brazil, explained through all sorts of specious reasons. Prosecutions of Bolsonaro. I don't mean that Trump doesn't care about that. He definitely does. But Bolsonaro, legal steps that Brazil is taking against American tech companies, a non-existent Brazilian trade surplus against the United States. So we have 50% headline figure, 50% tariffs against Brazil. We now have 50% tariffs. I believe it's actually, probably speaking, 55% tariffs against China. Now, people don't understand this because the headline number is 35% tariffs against China. But in fact, tariffs against China have been creeping up for some time now. And if we go back a couple of years, tariffs against China have increased to around, again, a headline level, about 55% against China. Remember, China is the major target. There's also tariffs and pressure on South Africa. And there's also threats against Russia. Now, this is very complicated because India is being blamed for buying oil from Russia. The United States, Trump, however, seems to be trying to win over Russia because they seem to think that Russia, which is already under a lot of pressure, might be the country that might be drawn out of the BRICS eventually. So you tell the Indians, blame the Russians that we put tariffs on you. We then seem to be talking to the Russians. We're having summit meetings with them. We're playing this complicated game of trying to break up the BRICS, and we're using tariffs in order to do that. And you're absolutely correct. The BRICS are responding. Now, the first thing to say about these tariffs is that they are not all that they seem. So 50% tariffs against Brazil, but apparently there are huge numbers of carve-outs in the tariffs against Brazil. So all sorts of things like business jets. Embraer, Brazilian company, makes business jets and other kinds of jets. Apparently they're not subject to tariffs. All sorts of other products that Brazil produces, also not subject to tariffs. I understand that in the case of India, India's total trade with the United States is around $130 billion a year. Imports, exports. Apparently, only about 20 billion of that is going to be subject to the 50% tariffs, because there are so many carve-outs on other things, on pharmaceuticals, on electronic goods, on all kinds of other things, that the reality is the tariff against India is well below the headline rate. China, even more so. Again, lots of carve-outs on the tariffs against China. Electronic goods basically not subject to them. So already we can see that the American position is not quite as strong as it looks to be on the surface. The Americans also clearly very nervous about making real steps against Russian energy, Russian oil and energy exports, despite talk that they want to do that, because they're very nervous of pushing up energy costs as well. So the Americans are launching an all-out attack on the BRICS, an economic attack on the BRICS, but already it's looking as if the BRICS economies are stronger than the Americans perhaps anticipated, so that the Americans are having to pull some of their punches. And the BRICS, who clearly understand that there is an attempt to divide them, are on the contrary combining. And we can see this. So Lula is talking about calling an emergency meeting of the BRICS. Now, here, I get to say it again, you get the news very often first on the Duran, because we did a program some days ago in which we actually said that there would probably be, at some point soon, an emergency meeting of the BRICS. And now we see that Lula, who is, by the way, this year, it's Brazil that is chairing BRICS. So Lula is the chair of BRICS. He's going to call India. He's going to call China to set up an emergency meeting of the BRICS. So that is clearly now on the cards. It is on the way. Modi is going to visit China, and apparently that trip might take place as soon as next week. Just before we started making this program, reports coming through that the Indian government has now agreed the dates of Vladimir Putin's visit to India. So all of these various countries are now in discussions and contacts with each other. India is meeting China and Russia. Modi is going to China. Putin is coming to India. Brazil, Lula is talking to India and China, and before long, Russia too. The Prime Minister of Malaysia, which is also, I believe now, either a BRICS state or a BRICS aspirant state, is in Moscow. Expect over the next couple of weeks an extraordinary summit meeting of the BRICS to take place. And the BRICS will then agree further steps to take integration between them a whole step further, because, to repeat again, exactly as we've been saying, in program after program, the major catalyst of BRICS integration has been American economic pressure.
What can BRICS do together to fight off this attack from the Trump White House? Do they need to do anything? Or is it just a matter of staying unified? Just staying unified and staying on course. You don't need to panic because, as you mentioned, there are a lot of carve-outs in these tariffs, which Trump is not going to talk about. He's just going to say 50% tariffs, peace through strength. You see, I'm pressuring India, I'm pressuring Russia. Everything is good, but he's not going to get into the details of all the carve-outs with these tariffs. For example, what you mentioned about India, that India does have carve-outs, and it makes these tariffs a lot weaker than what they sound, than what they appear. But does BRICS need to do anything, or do they just need to stay united?
You know, I think you actually are asking an excellent question, because I'm going to make a guess that is going to be the primary purpose of this extraordinary meeting. It is to reaffirm BRICS unity and the commitment of all of the various states to the BRICS. They will this time want a meeting in which all the leaders are there. One of the things that the Americans and others have been talking about was that Xi Jinping and Putin didn't attend the BRICS meeting in Rio. Now, we've discussed at the time why they probably didn't want to attend that meeting. One of which was that Putin didn't want to put himself at risk by traveling all that enormous distance when there's a warrant out for his arrest from the International Criminal Court, which the Europeans might try and enforce against his plane if it was flying to Rio. So Xi Jinping also didn't want to meet Modi at that time because relations between China and India were difficult. But Modi is now going to meet Xi Jinping. If they decide to hold the meeting, let us say in India, which is a real possibility, then all of them can meet and they can all show that they're united together with each other, that there are no cracks within the BRICS, and that they're all talking together as one. The problem with doing more practical things is that they are doing those things already. To do them properly takes time. To work out payment systems, to do all of the technology things that need to be done, to unite various payment systems that already exist in different countries, to sort out all the technological glitches. That is not something that really you should hurry, because if you do, you will get a defective system. And as somebody who knows an awful lot more about tech than I do, I suspect you will say that it's much better to set it up properly from the beginning than have to repair it all the time after you set it up and got it going. So I think they're probably not going to rush to do those things that they already agreed that they would do in Kazan, and which they took further during that meeting in Rio.
Why is Trump all of a sudden so obsessed with BRICS? What do you think did it for him? Wouldn't it have been better if Trump tried to play along with BRICS? I'm not saying become a part of BRICS, but worked with BRICS. What was the thing that pushed Trump over the edge with BRICS? Because 4 months ago, BRICS to Trump was Brazil, Russia, India, China, and Spain. That was BRICS to Trump 4 months ago. What did it?
And as you absolutely correctly pointed out in one of our recent programs, if you followed the election last year, the subject of BRICS never came up at all. He never said that, he was going to go off and attack BRICS last year during the election. I mean, this has all come together over the last couple of weeks. Well, I'm going to make a guess that he's been briefed. He's received a briefing from someone, perhaps the CIA, perhaps people in Congress, who are telling him that BRICS is a real, a clear and present danger to the United States, that his entire economic policy will be thrown into chaos if BRICS succeeds, and that this has somehow alarmed him and is making him turn on BRICS in the way that he's currently doing. I mean, I can't come up with any other explanation. As I said, I presume he's received a report or a briefing from somebody about the threat from BRICS and is taking it very seriously.
I wonder if someone told him or his advisors believe that you can kill two birds with one stone. You can end the conflict in Ukraine as well as destroy BRICS and preserve the U.S.'s unipolar moment.
Yes.
So attack India, attack China, attack Russia, attack Brazil, break up BRICS. By breaking up BRICS, you also destroy Russia's funding for their war machine and dual use goods and Russian oil and all of that stuff. So you accomplish so much by escalating your tariff policy towards BRICS to the point where you solve all of your problems.
I think you've actually answered the question.
All of your foreign policy problems are solved.
I think you've also answered the question. I would add something else. I wonder whether the other thing that finally propelled Trump over onto the side of this was that whoever briefed him also told him this is the way to isolate China, because China is at the center of the BRICS and this is their trading system. So break it up, isolate China, which is of course the neocon dream. I mean, it was what they've been trying to do all of these years. Isolate China, and that this may very well have evolved out of the trade war between China and the United States that we saw in the spring, in April and May. That if you break up BRICS, you've isolated China. China doesn't have alternative trade partners. And then you can hammer the Chinese and you could force the Russians to agree to the freeze of the conflict, and you reestablish the hegemony of the dollar, and everything is well and good, and the United States is the unipolar superpower again.
Yeah. So what happens when and if and when Trump decides to impose these 100% tariffs on BRICS? Does that mean Brazil is getting 150% tariff? Does that mean India is getting 150%? Does that mean China is getting 135%? I believe it's at 35% now.
Yeah.
Is that what we're talking about? And what effect will this have on oil, the price of oil, on the U.S. economy, on the global economic situation?
Every analyst that I have read and heard, every serious analyst agrees that doing this thing would be absolutely catastrophic for the US and Western economies. I mean, they are at the center of a world trade system from which they've been net beneficiaries. I mean, I understand that there's issues about American deindustrialization and protection and things of this kind, but this is a cure that would be far worse than the disease. It would precipitate a major economic recession and crisis in the United States. We already have risk of stagflation in the United States, rising inflation against flat output growth. And this would make that problem far, far worse, and might even push the United States and the Western economies into a deeper recession. So it would be very, very bad. And the BRICS states altogether as a group are probably in a much stronger position to navigate this and to work their way through than the United States is. China, a huge manufacturing economy. India, it's trades, but if it sorts out BRICS, if it's able to draw ASEAN into BRICS, which it is gradually, step by step, succeeding in doing. It's got its market. It's got its market and its trade partners. It's got its secure oil and gas supplies from Russia and Iran. It's sorted, basically. India, a economy that is basically growing on the basis of domestic demand. And India has strong relations with China in that case. It needs massive investments to upgrade its infrastructure and its industry. China can provide that. It provided the relationship with India and China is sorted out. Russia has secure markets for its oil and gas. Brazil has also secure markets for its agricultural products, many of its industrial products as well. Brazil is a significant industrial producer. All of these countries could potentially navigate the system better than the Western economies could do, because the Western economies have been at the center of world trade for so long that they've become more dependent on it in many respects than the BRICS countries have. So that's how it would play out, provided the BRICS remain united.
Where does South Africa fit in all of this?
Well, it's the weakest member of the BRICS. I think this is widely accepted. It's still nonetheless, it's still got industries, it's still got presumably mining. I gather gold is much less important today than it used to be in the South African economy. I don't pretend I know very much about this, but South Africa has its place, and Africa absolutely does. And Africa is a region where the BRICS states are very, very interested. And remember, Ethiopia is already a member of BRICS, and True. Nigeria is apparently heading in the direction of becoming so. So is Angola, by the way.
When we talk about BRICS unity, a final question, a lot of people don't discuss this, but when we are talking about BRICS unity, I mean, everyone's focusing, rightly so, on India, Brazil, China, Russia, because that seems to be where the Trump White House's attack is focused on. But if we're talking about Lula having a meeting, calling a meeting with BRICS, and BRICS talking about reaffirming their unity against the attacks, the tariff attacks that are incoming. I mean, we are talking about Ethiopia. We are talking about UAE. I believe the UAE is going to be meeting with Putin as well.
Absolutely.
We are talking about Iran.
Yeah.
Africa definitely seems to be leaning towards BRICS.
Yes.
Indonesia.
Yes.
Talking about Indonesia. And we're also talking about partner states. I mean, where does all of this fit in?
Well, absolutely. I mean, what we're starting to see is a trade system that not only it brings together the core countries, which is the ones you said, China, India, Brazil, Russia, but which is gradually expanding to draw in ASEAN, the ASEAN states, which are already economically well developed, but also more and more of the global south as well. In other words, most of the world, eventually, outside the dollar system.
Right. Okay, we will end the video there. theduran.locals.com. We are on Telegram and X and Rumble, and go to the Duran shop, pick up some merch like what we are wearing in this video update. A link is in the description box down below. Take care.